Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Hello, welcome back. Shalom Aleichem. We are on CHULLIN Memvav, 12 lines from the top of the Amid, and on to the next item on our Treifos list. Says the Gemara, Nitla HaKavid v'chulu. Mishnah mentioned, if the liver was totally removed, it's gone, that constitutes a treifa animal. Says the Gemara, so only if it's all gone. However, but nishtayr himano klum kshera. If there's some left behind, there's some remnant of that liver, it's okay, irrespective of its size. Even a minuscule remnant suffices. Afagav, even though even though there's no kazayis worth of liver left behind, but now we have a Mishnah which does require a kazayis at the least. Nitel hakaved, right? The kaved was removed. Nishtayr hem and a kazayis ksheraf. There's a kazayis left behind, it's okay. And now Mishnah, that is not needed. Amar Yosef, yeah, it's a machlekes tanaim, like Kashi. Here's the answer. Harab Chia. The Mishnah which says a kazayis is needed, that's going like Rab Chia's opinion. Our Mishnah which does not require a kazayis, Rab Shimon, who was the son of Rebbe Bar Rebbe. Kiha, as we actually found that in practice they would conduct themselves in this manner. So if there was an animal that had this phenomenon, missing liver with less than a kazayis remaining, he would throw it away, he would discard of it, because he considered it a treifa, whereas Reb Shimon Bar Rebbe, he had no qualms eating it. Matbala, he would dip it. They would those days everything was eaten by way of dipping. It's just a way of saying, it's an expression, he would eat it. Because even if there's a drop of the liver left behind, the animal can still, live. To remember what's what. Ashirim Mekamtsin, there's a saying, the wealthy tend to be more frugal. Money means more to them, right? So, the irony is that Reb Shimon, who was the son of Rebbe, who was wealthy, so he came from a wealthy family, he would be less inclined to discard of meat, and he would salvage it and eat it. Okay, now you know who said what. Bottom line is, it's a machlekes tanaim. In the case of nitel hakaved, how much needs to be left behind to render the animal a non-treifa? Okay, so how much is needed for the animal to be kosher? According to one shita, kazayis. According to the other, even a mashu. Okay, on this topic, here comes a story. Hopul Musa, there was this wild band of troops that came, the Asa Lepumpadisa came to this town. And you get out of the way if you know what's good for you. Arku Rabba, so Rabba Rav Yosef escaped. They got out of the way. On the way out, Pagabu Rab Zera. Rab Zera meets them. Amarlu, he tells them, hold it. Arukai, escapees, 1 second before you go. Something important, a halacha to keep in mind. Kazayisha amru b'makei mara. A halacha relating to our topic. When we say that the leftover kaved portion has to be a kazayis, not any kazayis, not any location, not any part of a liver counts. It has to be the critical portion of the liver. Kazayis amru b'makei mara, right next to the part that's flush with the mara, with the gallbladder. Then it counts. Then the animal can survive. But if the kazayis is on the other side, it doesn't work. Rav Ada bar Ava Amar, he says, no, b'makam sheyichaya. It has to be on the upper side of the liver, which is flush with the kidneys, towards the backbone. And that's what gives the animal life. And that's the condition here. That's the precondition for this halacha. Amar Papa Hilkach Beinu Kazayis Mokei Mara. Since we have two versions of the required location. Some say near the mara, some say near the kidneys. So you have to do both, cover both bases to be safe. Therefore, we require that there should be one kazayis b'malkaim near the mara, or bein kazayis, another kazayis malkaim sheichaya near the kidneys. And Rashi says it's called malkaim sheichaya sha'kaved chaya misham. That's where the liver draws its sustenance. Okay, so you have to have both to be sure. But Rabbi Yirmiyah, mislakit mao. Okay, you need a kazayis. What if the kazayis isn't really one bunch? It's a little here, a little there, and together you have a kazayis. Kiritzuah mao. What if it's not a round clump? It's like a long strip. And if it's added up, you have a kazayis, but it's not in a round form. Ma, what's the halacha? But Rav Ashi, kazayis merudad ma. What if the kazayis is a kazayis, but it's sort of thinned out, flattened out? Does that count? Kazayis merudad ma. We'll take it. We'll leave all these unresolved. Boy, minei. Reb Zuka asked me, Rab Ami, Nadad l'kaved. Suppose the liver was detached in many, from many sides, mu'ura b'tarpashay, but it's still connected to the tarpash, which is a section beneath the kaved. It's like the base of the kaved. It's called tarpash ha-kaved. Still connected there. Ma, what would you say in this case? So everything is there, it's just detached on all sides except for the bottom. Amalei says, what's the issue? Dildul zed, this kind of dildul, I'm not sure what the issue is. Any idea ma'u? It's all there, it's all intact. Iluman Omar b'makim mara. Whether according to the shita that you need a kazayis near the mara, you have it, you have it right there. According to the other opinion, it has to be on the other side. It's there as well, so it's okay. Next item are the lungs, right? So the lungs, which where you discover where a hole was discovered, so there's a puncture in the lungs, that makes it a treif. Now, just as we had yesterday regarding the brain, we spoke about the double-layered membrane, the lungs as well. They have two layers of membrane. One which actually encases the lung itself, flush to the lung, and the one which is above that. So where's the hole? Is it going all the way through? Is it just going partially through? What's the issue? We have a machlokes, very similar, almost word for word to what we had yesterday regarding the brain. Rabbi Shmuel and Rav Asi, so these three say the Amrit Karmei law. Even if the upper membrane was punctured, it's already treifa. Because it lost its protection, its life is going to dissipate. For Amri law, some say karmatat-torah. Taisus learns, no, until the upper and the lower one were punctured, there's no issue. Because as long as there's some protection, it's okay. Amar Be'esef, Bar Minyum, Amar Nachman Simanech. In order to, you want to identify, pinpoint exactly what this lower membrane is, he says like this: Kituna de Varda. Kituna is a malbush, a garment, a red garment, a mancha beireya, in which the lung is encased. So, if you peel off the upper membrane, you'll see like an encasement, a red encasement around the lung. And the more elaborates on this. Pshita. Now, this is pretty clear to us. If the upper layer was punctured, but not the bottom one, the bottom one protects the lung adequately and it's safe. Because the Rabbi teaches us, this lung, the iglid, which was skinned, the upper layer was removed. Kahina, we turn to my base, kahina, like a date, sunka, red date, so it looks like a red bear date. Ksher, it's still okay. Because that provides adequate protection. Enables the lung to function properly. Inkiv tetov v'lo inkiv ilo. The bottom layer was punctured, but not the upper one. Megan, oiloi megan. Is there enough protection or not? Pligiba, there's machlokes between Rav Acha and Ravina. Between these two, Chad Amar, one says loy megan. There isn't enough protection. The air will soon leak out. It's not going to work. Chad Amar, megan, it does protect properly, and it's a kasha. That's the halacha megan. As long as there's one membrane intact, it's okay. Because Rav Yosef, as Rav Yosef teaches us, likewise, the issue is only if there's a hole that permeates through and through both layers. The Amar of Yosef, Hi Reya, he gives us a method of examining the Reya to ensure that it's kosher. And based on his method, we will see that his only concern was when there's a hole through and through, otherwise it's okay. Listen to this. Hareya de afsha, you have a lung, which after it's blown up, right, after the animal shechta, they blow it up, you hear a squeaky noise, you hear a hissing sound. There's some air escaping. What's the status of the animal? Okay, inan hecha afsha, if you can pinpoint where the hissing is coming from, so you see where the air is coming from, so you do this test. You take a gatva, a little feather, you put it on that spot, a reiko, some saliva, a gila, a little straw, and you see what's happening. So if it's bubbling, it's jumping up and down, treifa, you know that in fact the air is coming right through the wall, all the way out. So it's a treifa. V'loi, but otherwise, then it's kshera, because evidently the air is not escaping. Now, if you don't know where you can't pinpoint the source of this sound, you do the following test: a tube in the water, like the flat tire and the bike. You put it in the water and you see where it's bubbling. Some say mashichli. Okay, you take a bucket, the maya peshuri, filled with lukewarm water. We'll see in a minute why lukewarm, and use it as a tester. You put the lung, immerse it in the water, but not in hot water, the kavtzi, because it tends to shrink things, and it's going to shrink and close up the hole, and then you can't. But likewise, not in cold water, the metarshe will harden the material, in which case, even if the hole is merely on the bottom layer, and the upper membrane is still intact, but because it gets hardened, in a way it becomes more fragile, and it's more prone to cracking, so the air will burst out, and then you'll have a hole through and through, and you will not be able to be machshad the animal. In order to make a proper test, you put it into lukewarm water, which will just be neutral. And you blow up the lungs, and you see what happens in the water. If there is leakage, if there's bubbling treifa, the hole is through and through, and there's air escaping. It's a treifa. Otherwise, kshera, it's okay. Why? Because that tells us that only the lower membrane was punctured, and the air, although it's hissing, it's just escaping into the gap between the two membranes, and the animal still kosher. But the upper layer was not punctured by the afshan. The point of this sound is the zika, the air that's escaping, the beni benu between the layers, and it's okay. So clearly Rav Yosef held like the shita, treifa is only when the hole goes through and through. It's only if it's a flush hole. Gufa, let's go back to Amar Rava. Hayrei, the iglit, a lung which was skinned, the upper layer was removed, kahina sumka, looks like a bear, like a red date, it's okay, it's ksher. Va'amar Rava, another halacha from Rava regarding a lung, reya shadima miktsas. So you discover a red mark, like a red mark, due to a bang, a trauma on the part of the lung. Shadima miktsas. Ksher, it's okay, because the animal will recover. A kula, but if it's fully reddened, then it's a treifa, because such an injury to such an extent is considered life-threatening. Amla Ravina L'Rava. I'm trying to understand the difference between partial redness and full redness. Miktsasa, if it's partially red, my timer, why is it okay? The hadrabarya, because it's going to recover. It's not a permanent, it's just a passing type of condition. Well, kulanami hadrabarya, the same could be applied when it's fully red. It will recover. It will regenerate. It will reabsorb its blood and circulate properly. In Tanya, we have a similar halacha regarding on Shabbos, that the halacha is, if one inflicts a wound, it causes bleeding, right? Shechting, that's one of the malachas, right? On Shabbos. What about if he does it to a creature? So it depends. We have the unique 8, right? The 8 shmona shvatzim. What's unique about them? In those, their skin is more pronounced. There's a clear distinction between their skin and their flesh beneath it. So there, if there's any a trauma, if there's any markage, any red blotch, that's indicative of the blood having left its domain, being uprooted, relocated, and now it's trapped under the skin, but it's not going to be reabsorbed. It's like removing blood. It's like the animal's bleeding, and you have committed, it is considered a malacha of shchita, removing of life, and it's a malacha. But regarding other types of creatures, little flimsy creatures, a grasshopper, a frog, where it's more of a mush. It's less distinguishable. It's one big mush. So there, even if there's some redness, if there's some trauma, and there is a red blotch, it's going to be reabsorbed into the system. It's not considered a permanent removal or relocation of blood, and therefore does not constitute a malach. So we see that these things can, remedy themselves. Milay Tani, we find a brisa, ushar, shkatzim, all the other types of creatures. There's only an issue if the blood actually leaves the body, but if it's trapped underneath, it will be reabsorbed. So let's assume the same with the lung. Even if you see pronounced marks of red, it's flesh, it's tissue, it's going to regenerate and recover. So what's the issue? Why is it considered a treifa? Perhaps you'll say, no, the lung has the same status as those 8 unique creatures, the snanya, where we learn, nitzar hadam. There was a bunching up, a gathering of blood. Even though it hadn't left the creature entirely, it's still trapped under the skin. It's considered a malacha. It's chavala. It's considered like he injured the animal in a permanent way. So perhaps here as well, the lung has that same status. If that's the case, I feel sanami. So I wait until the whole thing is red, even if just a minor portion is red. That part's permanently damaged. Elishna. Rather, there's no difference. Redness is not considered a sign of treifa, whether it covers the whole lung or even part of it, doesn't matter. It's going to recover, it's going to regenerate, and survive just fine. Ve'omar Rabba, another halacha from Rabba, Reya Shiyav Shemiktsas, treifa. If after Shechita they find that part of the lung dried up, that dried part is considered like it's missing. And in the animal's a treifa. V'kama, what level of dryness constitutes treifa? Amar Papa made the Rava. This is the test. If it disintegrates, b'tziperin, when it's struck by somebody's nail. Okay, so that's the litmus test. If it crumbles at that point, it's fully dry and it's considered a treifa. But if it's just somewhat dried, it's not really considered yavesh regarding this halacha. Kiman Rabbi Yossi ben Meshulam. So this level of dryness, this requirement, is in line with Rabbi Yossi ben Meshulam, not like the Rabbanon, because he as well applies this type of standard to determine dryness, the sanya. With the snan, there's a mishnah, izoi hi yavesha. Now we shift to a bechor. A bechor is a firstborn animal, which is meant to be a carbon unless it's blemished. Suppose they find a blemish, such as his ear dried up, his ear shriveled up. That's considered a mum, which now allows its owner to take the animal, just shecht it out of the Beis HaMikdash. Now, what level of dryness is dry? Ve'ezah hi yavesha. Tanna Kama says, uses a different definition. Shimti nokev. Test is, if you punch a hole in the ear, there's no bleeding, then it's dry. You don't need more than that. Rabbi Yossi ben HaMeshulam, however, he disagrees. He says it's got to be way drier. Yavesha means it just crumbles upon contact with one's fingernail. So it would seem that Rabba's halacha, where he applies this definition to the dryness of the reya, is in line with Rabbi Yossi ben HaMeshulam and not like the Rabbanon. No, if you look at Rabbanon, you know what? He can go even like the Rabbanon. There's a big difference between an ear and an animal and an internal issue like a lung. I feel Rabbanon. Gambi oizen b'chor, regarding the ear of the b'chor, which is open to the elements, open to the environment. To koshalat be'zika, the air, the environment, the germs are beating down at it. Lo yihadra bari, it's not going to recover easily. So even if it achieved this degree of dryness, it's already considered out of commission. Aval reya, but regarding the lung, which is internal, protected, cared for, the loikashalat ba'avir, it's not open to the elements. Hadra bari, you can recover if it achieved just a minimal level of dryness, and therefore in that case, it is only a treifa if it's super dry. V'amar Rav, another halacha from Rav regarding the lungs. Harei de kaima gildi gildi. You open the animal, you find a lung, which is somewhat all pretty much intact, no holes or issues like that, but it's gildi gildi. It's like scales. So the surface of the lung presents like almost fish scales, like peels. Uchmi, or a bunch of black spots. Chazus, a bunch of different colors. Ksheira, it's okay. That's not a treif. Amar meimam shmei de Rava. Ein makifin bebui. Now, bui is plural for bua. Bua is a cyst, some sort of blister. Now, how does this blister form? As we said, the reya is comprised of two layers of encasement. It has two membranes. Now, if the lower level was punctured, Rashi explains, chances are there's some liquid going to be oozing out from inside the lung, some sort of liquid, some sort of, that's going to ooze out through that hole. And that could push, right? That could push the upper layer, the upper membrane, and form it into some sort of bubble, some sort of cyst. Now, is the animal kosher? Yeah, at this point it's still kosher, because as we explained, as long as the upper membrane, as long as the upper encasement is still intact, you're good. So the bua itself, per se, would not present an issue. Here we're speaking that the bua was punctured. You found a nekev in the cyst itself, which basically means that both layers have now been punctured. But as Rashi says, you discovered it upon examining the animal. You're not sure when that puncture happened. Was it pre-shchita, in which case the animal was shechted with a hole flushed through and through its treifa, or perhaps that puncture happened after shchita, was, it burst after shchita. Which means the animal's still okay, because during the shchita, only the lower membrane was punctured. So how could you determine? So theoretically, there would be a way to figure this out by taking a look at the rest of the lung and perhaps locating another, or finding a different lung and finding another cyst and puncturing it right now after shchita, and then comparing the two phenomena. If they look alike, if they're matching, then you know that the first one got its puncture only after shchita as well. Because if it happened during the animal's lifetime, it would look different. So could you use that kind of test? No, ein makifin. Makifin means you can't bring together bebui when it comes to these cysts, because ultimately you can't necessarily know for sure. You can't determine definitively what's what, where's where. Things change, colors change, and therefore it's not going to be much of a raya. Ve'amar Rav, another halacha, hani tarti uni. As we explained, the lung is comprised of umi and uni. Umi is a mother, like the main sections in the bottom, and uni are the flaps on the upper side of the lungs. And you have these two flaps, these two sections, hani tarti uni the srichen lahadali, that are glued to each other. Now sricha means they're sort of drawn to each other, attached to each other. That's where the lashon sircha comes from. We'll see tomorrow. Along without sircha, it's called glat, right? Smooth, without any adhesions, any stringiness coming out of it, which would indicate that there was a hole through which these fluids came out and formed these adhesions and stringinesses and gooeynesses, right? In any case, we have two uni that are glued to each other. Hani tati uni d'shrichen la'adati. Leslu b'dikusa. Leslu b'dika. So you can't. There's no point in checking, no point in examining to confirm whether or not there's a hole, because we know a sircha is formed by the hole beneath it, right? And there's a hole, that the liquid is forced out through the hole, which generates the sircha. So we know that there's a hole, at least on one of the two unis. That's how the sircha developed. So the animal's treif. But that's only a concern elosh like a sidron. When the two flaps that we're talking about are out of order. So let's say the first one with the third one connected through this sort of adhesion, so we know there's a hole there, and even if the Rashi explains, even if the hole developed this sircha above it to protect it, it's like a scab. The halacha is krum she'ala machmas maka b'reya ain't a krum. We don't reckon with a krum with some sort of membrane, some sort of scab or growth that developed to block and to seal the hole of makkah. Ain't a krum. It's not reckoned with. Shesayfi lisasa, Rashi says, because ultimately it's just going to fall apart. It's perhaps due to the consistency of the material, the movement of the lung. It's not something which is going to stay there permanently. It's not going to really repair it properly. So whenever we find a sircha, which indicates that there's a hole beneath it, the animal's treif, because that's the halacha. A hole with a hole in an array is treif. However, here comes an exception, a kula. That's only when the two uni that are glued are out of order. So, suppose there's 3 uni. The first one is glued to the third one. But let's say it's 1 attached to 2. Okay, so they're side by side, and they're just glued to each other instead of being separate. They're glued to each other. That's okay. You know why? Because that's the way they grow. Meaning, that's their natural formation. They sit alongside each other, and therefore, says Rashi, even if there really is a hole, they protect each other. And the hole that generated that sircha will recover, will regrow and seal properly, because it has this constant accompaniment of the una next to it, which keeps it protected, keeps it supported, covers for it, and allows it to recover. So in this case, even a hole in the lung would be okay, because the sircha did its job. Okay, let's quickly recap today's daf. We covered the liver and the lungs. So if there's nothing left of that liver, it's treif. According to some, you need to have a kazayas. According to some, that's not really needed. Even a little bit is okay. We had a machlekes in terms of the location of that remnant. Regarding the lung, if it's nikva, it's a treifa. According to one sheet, even the upper membrane, a hole there would suffice to be a treif. According to the other shita. And likewise, Rav Yosef described it has to be through and through. And in fact, if there's a hissing sound, there's a way to test it to determine that it's only the lower membrane. As long as the air is contained within it, the lung is still considered a functioning lung, an animal, a healthy animal. We spoke about all kinds of conditions, rednesses and peelings and colors. And we concluded the halacha of sircha in a way that it's a treifa, and in a way which is actually considered still kosher. We continue tomorrow. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rava.